Hey there, welcome to the Graced Health Podcast, your source for aging strong in your physical, mental, and spiritual health. My name is Amy Connell. I'm a weight neutral certified personal trainer and nutrition coach who loves walks with friends, chocolate, and Jesus. Whether you're looking to grow stronger as you age, nourish your body, mind, and spirit, or fit all the pieces of your health together to holistically thrive, this is the place for women over 40. I am here to guide you in the areas I can and bring on experts in the areas I'm still learning. And of course, we will cover it all in a whole lot of grace. I'm glad you're here. This is the fourth of a 4-part series on the core essentials of Graced Health. We have been walking through the acronym of GRACE, which is the 4 pillars of the Graced Health podcast. G stands for grace focused. R and A is resilient aging. Those were covered in the first and second episodes. Last episode was C for Christ centered. And today we finish with E, expansive health topics. When you listen to the Graced Health podcast, I give you the opportunity to learn about a variety of topics that are important to our health, particularly as we age. I truly try to provide a holistic approach when planning my seasons, both with my guests and my solo episodes. Now, what's funny is this was never the plan. The plan was to have 3 basic types of exercises, 3 basic types of episodes. I guess when I say I'm so used to saying different types of exercises, so different types of episodes. I started with wanting to do series of in the gym, and then I moved on to in the kitchen, and then I moved on to in the Word. Well, what happened was I got to talking with other podcasters, and I specifically remember being at a podcast conference at the end of February 2020. So this was right before everything shut down. And I remember thinking, I don't even know if this conference thing is going to happen, but it did. And I remember talking with Dr. Michelle Bankson, whom you have heard several times on the show. She is a neuropsychologist, and of course, her focus is on mental health, particularly as it relates to our Christian faith. And I remember having this conversation and in my head thinking, I have got to have some talks about and some conversations about mental health, but I don't know anything about mental health. And that's when I really started inviting a lot more guests on, because that was the beginning of my journey. And you guys have been walking through this, if you've been listening along with me, of realizing how everything in our body is interconnected. Our thoughts control so much, our spiritual life, trauma. It's not just head and body, which is how I used to coach. And if I have ever coached you and said, leave your problems at the door, or you've got to forget what's going on, I apologize, because that was just ill-informed and, quite honestly, uneducated. I now know better, which is why we are having expansive health topics here on the Graced Health podcast. Now, as we talked about in the R and A, resilient aging episode, a lot of these do have to do with resilient aging, but not all of them, particularly the ones surrounding our faith and our spiritual walk, because those can be applicable to anyone. I thought I would just share a few of the expansive health topics that we have covered, just to give you an idea of the kinds of things that we do talk about. And again, this is a podcast for women over 40. If you are not over 40, you are welcome to listen, because it will probably hit you at some point. But I've just realized how important it is to have a wide variety of things that we talk about here. So some of those include movement and movement-related ways to care for your aging body. And this is my bread and butter. This is where I feel like I do have the education and the confidence to speak into. And then we have topics like menopause, which I do not, except for the fact that I am going through this. So I'm always going to be bringing on people to talk about menopause related issues and solutions. Is that right? The right word? Issues and ways of coping, I guess. We'll talk some about nutrition And again, just like I spoke about earlier, as of now, I am saying this is all done through an intuitive eating perspective. So I'm going to try my very hardest not to have conversations outside of the intuitive eating umbrella. We talk about spiritual development. We've talked about gut health. Those have been some really popular episodes, actually, the ones about gut health. Every now and then I'll sprinkle in some with parenting, because many of us are parents. Many of us are parents of young adults, and that is a different type of navigation I am learning. And then, of course, we still will talk about body image. By the way, if you are looking for a particular topic or a particular guest, you can go to the podcast page on my website. So it's just gracedhealth.com/podcast. And what that does is it will take you to a third-party provider that I use to host all of my podcast episodes. This is a very rich site that has a lot of offerings. And one of that is you can search. You can go up and hit the search bar and see if there is a particular topic that we have had. That's a good way to find topics or guests that you think that we've talked about, but you don't know where it is. Because again, we're like, I don't even know how many episodes, maybe 340, something like that. I don't expect you to scroll through all of that. Who has time for that? Don't do that. Go to the search bar. And the other thing is, if you can't find something and you want to hear something, there's now a voicemail option on there. All you have to do, this is so easy. I tested it. Do it on your phone, click leave a voicemail, and it's just up to 90 seconds, and you can just leave something, and then it emails me and says, you have a voicemail. You don't even have to put in your name and email. I didn't, because I thought, I want to see what happens here. And I'm skeptical. Like, what are you going to do with my name and email? So just leave that voicemail. And by the way, this is new. It would be really fun for me to hear from you. So if you want to say anything, if you just want to say, hey, Amy, thanks for this, or I want to hear about this, then go do that. But I think you should do it on your phone, unless you're like pretty savvy on the desktop. I haven't tried it on the desktop. Anyway, all of that to say, okay, landing the plane here. So we have now talked about the 4 different pillars of the Graced Health podcast. This is where we are now, and this is where we are going. I hope you will go with me if this sounds interesting to you. If this is not what you signed up for, if this is not consistent with where your health goals are, I respect that. You can choose if you want to stay or not. And no matter what, I of course wish you the best. But these are all the types of conversations and the lens of the conversations that we will be having here on the Graced Health podcast. So from here on out, starting on Tuesday, we start our next season. I hope you tune in. We will be hearing from Lisa DeCam, who is a physical therapist, and she's going to talk to us about joyful movement. I so enjoyed this conversation, and I think you will too. Until then, I appreciate you. I appreciate you listening. And by the way, if you have not yet left a rating and review, that would be incredibly helpful to me. Believe it or not, those things matter. So if you could do that one small thing for me, or share this show with a friend, I would greatly appreciate it. And as always, have a graced day.